Hello guys, welcome to Math Pro. So I am Sir A, and today we will be discussing about this topic.
In division of decimal numbers, there are four different cases that you might encounter. First, dividing a decimal number by a whole number. Second, dividing a decimal number by a decimal number. Third, dividing a whole number by a decimal number. And the last is dividing whole numbers, but the quotient would be decimal numbers. In these four cases, there is only one basic rule. You only have to remember that there should be no decimal divisor. Then if your divisor is not a decimal number anymore, then you just divide like whole numbers. Let's take this for example. If you want to get the quotient of 3 and 6 tenths and 12, again, the basic rule is to make sure that your divisor is a whole number. So in this case, your divisor is already a whole number. So that means you can proceed to the second step already. Affix the decimal point on the top. You just put a decimal point on top aligned to the decimal point in your dividend. Then, you divide like whole numbers. So if you know how to divide whole numbers very well, then this lesson is not a problem to you. But if not, maybe you can check the video I created about division of whole numbers, which entitled How to Basic Division. This video reviews the procedures in long division, and also it teaches a strategy on how to divide whole numbers using only addition and subtraction. So check this out. Alright, so we now divide like whole numbers. So we cannot divide 3 by 12. So we can just put 0. Then we use 36 as our dividend. So we divide 36 by 12. We get 3. When we multiply 3 and 12 to get 36. Then we subtract. Then we already have our quotient. The quotient is 3 tenths. Let's have another example. Suppose we have to divide a decimal by another decimal. So since there should be no decimal divisor, then we cannot proceed with our division yet. So we have to do something to make our divisor a whole number. So we do the first step. For you to understand it better, let us write the given as fraction. So our dividend will be the numerator and our divisor will be the denominator. So we want this to become a whole number. And to do that, we can multiply it by 10. Because when we do so, we will be moving the decimal point going to the right. This method is discussed in the previous video that I uploaded about multiplication of decimal numbers. So check that out also. Alright? Notice that we multiply the same numbers in our numerator and denominator. It is because we are using the concept of equivalent fractions. So we say that 3 and 6 tenths over 1 and 2 tenths is equal to 36 over 12. And now our divisor is a whole number. So we can now proceed with our division. Without writing the given in fraction form, we can actually make our divisor a whole number by simply moving the decimal point. So we move the decimal point to the right to make it a whole number 12. But do not forget that we also have to move one place in our dividend. Again, because we are multiplying them by the same number, which is 10. So now our decimal point is here. We can now proceed to our step number 2. We affix the decimal point on the top. So since your decimal point is here already, so the decimal point should be there. Then finally, since the divisor is already a whole number, we can now divide like whole numbers. So we have now 36 divided by 12 is 3. 3 times 12 is 36. And when we subtract, it's already 0. Since the decimal point is on the right of the 3, then we can just simply write our answer as a whole number 3 because it's understood that the decimal digit is 0. Let's have another example. So in this case, our divisor is a decimal, but our dividend now is a whole number. But again, the basic rule, no decimal divisor. So that means we have to go and proceed to step 1. Again, let us try to write them in fraction form. So we have 36 over 12 hundredths. So to make our divisor a whole number, we have to multiply it by 100. And we have to do the same in our numerator. So the shortcut would be moving the decimal point 2 places to the right. And we do the same in our numerator. So we can now say that 36 and 12 hundredths is equal to 3,600 over 12. So since the divisor is already a whole number, then we can now proceed with our division. Again, we don't always need to do this. As explained a while ago, we can make our divisor a whole number by just moving the decimal point to the right until the decimal point is on the right of the ones place. And when we do that to our divisor, we must do the same with our dividend. Again, we are multiplying them both by 100. So we have now 3,600. And since your decimal point is here, we affix now the decimal point on the top. It should be there. And finally, you can now divide like whole numbers. So 36 divided by 12 is 3. 3 times 12 is 36. Subtract on them is 0. But notice that the remaining 2 digits that we will bring down are both 0. So in that case, we can actually just put directly them on the top. So our quotient is 300. Take note of that, guys. When the number that you will bring down are all zeros, you don't need to do the long method anymore. You can just put them directly on top, right? So the answer is 300. Our last case is dividing whole numbers, which would result to decimal numbers. It happens when the dividend is not divisible by our divisor. Let's take this for example. So in this case, that the two given are both whole numbers, we will be skipping step 1 and 2. So we just go divide them because they are whole numbers. So we divide 42 divided by 12 is 3. 3 times 12 is 36. Subtracting them, we will get 6. So since there is no more digit that we could bring down, we can just put 0.0. Anyway, 42.0 is equal to 42. So the value of the number won't change even if we put 0.0 in our dividend. And what's the purpose of that? Because we want to get the exact quotient and we don't want to use remainder. So since there is a decimal point already, we can put it directly on the top. Then we can now bring down 0. So we have now 60 divided by 12 is 5. 5 times 12 is 60. And subtracting them is 0. So the quotient is 3 and 5 tenths. Sometimes we need to add more than 1 0 before we are able to get the exact quotient. And to divide decimal numbers by 10, 100, and 1000, all we need to do is to move the decimal point, right? So we move the decimal point to the left based on the number of zeros in the divisor. So in 93 and 82 hundredths divided by 10, there is 1 0 in our divisor. So we move the decimal point to the left, 1 space. So our quotient will be 9 and 382 thousandths. Dividing the same number by 100, which has 2 zeros, then that means we have to move the decimal point to the left 2 places. So the decimal point will be here and our answer will be 9,382 10,000ths. And if we divide the same number by 1,000, which has 3 zeros, that means 3 movements to the left. And again, since there are only 2 digits, we need to use 0 as placeholder. So the decimal point will be here. So the quotient is this one. Then, when we want to divide decimal numbers by 1/10, 100ths, and 1000s, we have to move the decimal point to the right, this time based on the number of the decimal digits in the divisor. Let's have an example. So in this given, our divisor has one decimal digit. So that means we will move the decimal point to the right one place. So the answer is 591 and 4/10. And if we divide the same number by 100ths, which has two decimal digits, we will be moving the decimal point to the right two places. So our answer would be 5 and 914. So when we divide it by 1000ths, which has three decimal digits, we now move 1, 2, 3 places to the right. So again, we use 0 as placeholder and we'll get the quotient 59,140.
So that's it. Do not forget to click subscribe and to click the notification bell for more videos.